Okay, this is Aunt Helen's family famous, authentic Polish-Italian cheesecake. And to start, you have to make the crust. The problem with making the crust is the key ingredient is no longer available, and that was Zwieback, baby Zwieback teething biscuits. You could try a really hard biscotti, although that gives you quite a different taste, or a Dutch rusk with a little sugar, a little extra sugar added, I think would be a suitable substitute. And of course, whatever you're going to start with for crumbs, you're going to have to crush. I like to leave them right in the bag and give them a whack. Now I'll just pour them out and make it a little bit finer. You know, I suppose you could do these in a food processor, although I've never tried it. Because they didn't have food processors when this cheesecake was being perfected. Okay, now we have the Zwieback all finely crushed and put into a bowl. We are going to add to that a ½ cup of sugar. And I have turbinado sugar here, or dehydrated cane juice crystals, because that's what I use. But originally, you know, white sugar was what was used, and probably what most people will use. Also to that, you want to add the rind from a lemon. Now, I don't have one of those fancy zesters like they have on the cooking shows, so I just have to do mine on the grater and spend all the time trying to peel it off. And I'm going to mix that lemon rind carefully into here till it's well mixed and distributed. And I'm going to put in over the top a little bit of cinnamon. Oh, I can't guess what that is. A ½ a teaspoon maybe. And I'm probably going to sprinkle in about a ½ a teaspoon of nutmeg. We're going to pour in and mix up 1 stick of melted butter. That's a ¼ pound or 8 tablespoons, however. Okay, to finish the crust, we are going to put, about a tablespoon or so of fresh lemon juice in there. And just pour that in and mix it up. And then you want to reserve about a ½ a cup of that mixture, because that's going to go on the top of your cheesecake. And the rest you're going to put into a spring-form pan. I don't know if you haven't used one of these before. They're the niftiest little gadgets. I used to love to play with this when I was a kid. This was my aunt's actual pan from the 50s. And the bottom just drops in, springs shut, and you're all set. And then spoon the rest of that in here. Just spread it kind of evenly around. And then, of course, the only way to do it is to get in there with your hands and get it going up the sides, ½ an inch to an inch, so that you can make a bottom crust. When you undo your cheesecake, you'll be able to see some of that crust on the outside. Don't leave any holes in the bottom. Or when you bake it, some of your mixture will come through. Even if you're careful not to leave holes, sometimes some of the mixture comes through. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Pretty well patted all the way around. Okay, to make the filling for the cheesecake, we're starting with 2 pounds or 2 15-ounce containers will do it of Michigan brand cottage cheese, old-fashioned cottage cheese. No other kind will work. If you use another brand, it doesn't work unless it's exactly like this. Those really small, fine curds that soften up as they cook and are not runny and are not liquidy. It needs to be dry. And I have that in the bowl, and I'm going to mix in that a half a cup of sifted flour. And that's my way of sifting. Stir it up really well. Kind of shake it in. You can sift it with a sifter to be safe. And to that you also add a cup of sugar. We're going to mix all that, and we are also going to add some almond extract. 3 drops. I'm going to call that 3 drops. 3 good-sized drops of almond extract. And then the juice of 1 large lemon. And the rind from 1 large lemon. Just have that zest. And then you're going to mix that all together just with a spoon. Okay, in our next step we're going to add 4 eggs, but we're going to separate them. And watch, because I'm doing this for the camera, it won't work this time. You just separate your eggs. And I'm going to beat these egg whites until they're stiff. Okay, now the egg whites have beaten until they're nice and stiff. I'm going to beat these yolks up just a little bit with a fork and add them to the cheese mixture with the lemon juice and the sugar. And once again, you don't want to miss a drop. Extra large or large eggs. You don't want to use a small or a medium egg because the eggs are what put this together. And now we're going to beat this with the mixer before we add those egg whites. We're going to beat this all together for a couple minutes. Okay, now we've finished whipping this for about 2.5 minutes or so till it's nice and smooth. We're not going to add the egg whites just yet. The next step is to whip a cup of heavy cream or whipping cream. So I've cleaned my beater off because I don't want to put that mixture right in there to whip the cream. And I'll whip that until it is a nice thick consistency, but not so far that you turn it to butter. Okay, we're going to fold in our egg whites first, and strangely enough, we're going to add the cream last. So I'm just going to fold these gently in the mixture. Keep that air incorporated so that the mixture is nice and light and fluffy. Okay, now we have the egg whites all folded in. We're going to fold in the cream. And when that's finished folding, we are going to pour it into the crust. Okay, I'm going to take my pan before I pour it in, and I'm going to put it on a piece of aluminum foil and kind of crinkle it up around the edges, because sometimes springform pans sweat a little bit and tend to leak. And if it leaks in the oven and drips down, you'll have a nice smoky flavor to your cheesecake that you don't want. And then we're just going to pour this mixture in the pan. You remember that half a cup of topping that we reserved. We're going to sprinkle that over the top. Oh, there's the oven, preheated to 350 degrees. Now, I generally like to use a convection oven, but for this cheesecake, I bake it on a regular 350 degree setting. I do not use the convection or recommend it. It just doesn't cook the right amount of time. Let me just sprinkle. There's Wybeck or biscotti or rusk or crumb topping mix. And now it's ready to stick into the oven at 350 degrees for exactly 1 hour. And when the baking time is done, do not open it during that hour, do not look at it. When it's finished, turn off the oven and let it sit for exactly 1 more hour before you remove it. Okay, this goes into the center of the oven. On that foil. Close it up. Set the timer for exactly 60 minutes. Okay, so the cake has been in the oven for an hour, and then we turned it off without looking and let it sit for another hour, and now we've taken it out and let it cool for half an hour. It's still quite warm, actually. And we're going to release the pan, and I'm going to check to see if it's kind of stuck anywhere. And run the blade of the knife just in case. Carefully off. And there is the cheesecake. When it's completely cool, wrap it well in wax paper or plastic wrap and store it in the refrigerator. And enjoy. It's rich, delicious, and not too sweet.